Now with the
Now with
100%
100%.
video.
Nice.
Okay, looks like we're going. Oh, cool. All
Yep.
right.
No, I got ads.
I'm.
I'm sorry.
I have no
Oh,
idea.
Not
that's
subscribed.
okay. That's okay. I don't expect anybody to subscribe or be a patron or anything. The fact that anybody does it, I'm just like super duper surprised by.
Okay, I can hear you on the stream. Let me see if I can hear myself. Yep, I can hear myself. We're
Okay,
good.
perfect. Well, then I'm going to go ahead and send this over Discord and tweet it out.
Get down to that.
Yeah. Stuff was sent out on Twitter. And I'm trying to find
Is
my
my
own
phone
thing.
going? Because I get notifications about every SRRT going live.
And there's another one for you. You get a retweet too. Bam! Look at that.
It's on my phone, so you guys don't have to deal with my typing sounds.
Nothing wrong with that. All right.
There's a lot wrong with that.
All right. Well, I mean, I know that it's technically like 9 minutes till we start, but since we already kind of tried to start talking about the stuff we're talking about like 3 times already, what do you think? Should we actually just jump right into the show, or?
Let's
Yeah,
do
let's
it
surprise
right after
people.
this wheel.
All right, it'll be a surprise. We're there's no rules. John's not here to keep us, within
Yes,
our
wait.
guidelines.
Yeah, he's actually on the show this.
Is he now? We'll find out once the show starts, which is going to be in a second here. All right,
If I say
seriously.
anything, I feel like I'll be spoiling it.
Oh no, you're not spoiling anything. Random voice, who is definitely not Manny. All right, you guys ready?
Yes, I have removed my headphones to a safe distance.
Okay. Welcome to Azeroth Roundtable, episode 360. My name is Ben Bumhofer. It is a sad and somber day today. My friends, John Jagger has left us for his bed because he's feeling sick and fluish and stuff. So he's actually going to be taking a break this episode. The good news is that you don't have to hear me just ramble for an hour. I actually have some friends with me. First off, I'd like to introduce the wonderful, as always, Tetsemi. Hey, Tetsemi, how's it? I almost said, "Hey, John, how's it going?" Wow, I am way too into like a
routine.
Exactly. But hey, Ted, how's it going?
It's going well. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I've said this privately to you, but thank you very much for the extremely short notice of, hey, want to come on the show tonight? Because
I usually am available. Yes.
But I do appreciate it. And with us this week, joining us, I would just like to say that I can fulfill my promises. Manny, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Honestly, I think the real reason John's not here is that I showed up and he's like, forget that guy. And he decided not to show up.
Well, pretty much. I mean,
Yeah.
look, as guests go, you both are some of our favorites, and I just don't think that he can handle that like level of awesomeness.
That's a low
what
bar
we'll
to
go
fail.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, John hangs out in the lower areas, so yeah. Anyways,
I mean, we're no pre-nerf grappling hook, but we thank you for the compliment.
you bet. But anyways, everybody, let's all bomb John's Twitter account. Just give him well wishes and everything. But besides that, though, we've got some stuff to talk about in the World of Warcraft.
We do.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, so just because I feel like I need to throw this out there, because I have, for some crazy reason, decided that I'm going to do the very best that I can in my very limited amount of time that I have to work on 2 legendary cloaks on 2 different characters.
You're crazy.
You mad lad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just to give you an idea of how many runs that I've done this week and last week, after having a week of vacation, I think Nevermore and I did like a run. So I'm a bit behind. On my monk, I think I'm sitting at 8, or level 8 or whatever, because I still need to. It's the first one where you need to get 4 pages,
Right.
and then on my Volpira mage that I'm working on, I ran her through when it was Orgrimmar. I ran her through actually 2 by herself, so I think she's at rank 3. So, in theory, I can still kind of solo that, but I haven't actually tried on with Valeria with her yet.
I would tell you this week in Stormwind is so much better than the last couple of weeks it's been.
Oh, it's not the hot feed anymore?
No, it's not the hot feed. It's just basically this eyeball pops out and starts, or not eyeball, but this copy of your character pops out in shadow form and just starts walking towards you. And all you have to do is just get far enough away from it. If it reaches you, it just stuns you in place for 3 seconds. But it's much more avoidable than hot feet.
Oh, good.
I
Okay.
mean, Hot Feet's gameable though. This one is actually I have to pay attention to it because you can't snare it or stun it like you can the thing from Beyond. And I
Yeah,
kept thinking
but
it
I
was
mean,
that.
Yeah, but see, with hot feet, it's one of those things that if hot feet gets out of control, it gets out of control and affects everyone else. If your shadow walks through somebody, it doesn't stun them. It only stuns you if it catches you. So there's a lot less personal responsibility for not moving with hot feet.
Well,
Hmm.
if it hits you, I'm guessing it takes off a ton of sanity, though.
No,
Oh,
No,
it
it
just
stuns you
it
and
stuns
then-
you in place. Usually, right, as a boss or a mob is dropping something that will drain your sanity.
oh, that part's not fun.
No,
Mm-mm.
but but no, it was I think because we usually run them Tuesday evenings, Shoujo, Hans and I, and then Rabbit and Saint if they're available, just depending on her D&D schedule. But
Mm-hmm.
we all 3 times we ran it this week so far, we've ended it either not needing the last sanity thing to take Larry on, or just using it because we were like, at 400 sanity and we just didn't want to take the chance. So it was a lot cleaner this week.
Well, that's good to hear. And I gotta say, ever since the change went in for changing the health and how hard everything hits for like healers and tanks, soloing has been surprisingly better. I wouldn't say perfect, but surprisingly better on my monk. Because I was able to go through, do one side thing, and then defeat Ilaria.
Oh,
So,
nice.
I mean, I could do that, but I haven't actually attempted to try to do 2 full sides yet. I don't think I'll be able to do that currently, just because when I went to go defeat Ilaria, I was at about maybe half sanity, so I had just enough time to go in and just wipe the floor with her.
Right. Now, which side of the tree did you go down? Did you go down the solo side or the group side?
Both.
How do you mean both? Have you filled everything out now?
No, because I went down the group side and then found out that I was spending more time kind of working on it on my own. So then I went to the solo side.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's a stupid decision, but hey, I did it.
I mean, the
It's
group
not
side
stupid.
is.
I mean, it's going to fill in anyway, but yeah.
I would have honestly, if I had known, I would have said just keep going along the group side.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the deeper down the tree, rather than going wide, you get, the stronger they are. As soon as you get that one where when you defeat a enemy, you get like 200 sanity.
Oh,
It helps
Jeebus.
so much.
Yeah. It's not an enemy, it's an elite enemy. So, like the
Yeah.
mini bosses.
Well, yeah, but that gives you just a huge boost in there, and that is
Right,
well
which
worth
is-
it.
Yeah.
And not even just
that's
the mini
why-
bosses. There are some named characters around.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
count.
there's some, like in Stormwind, if you go into the cathedral square and you go right in that building, you kill that mob in there and it gives you like 7% versatility for the rest of the run.
Hey, that's not bad.
No.
Well, hey,
But
now
yeah-
I know for my mage not to just fill out the bottom rows first.
Yeah,
So-
actually that one saves a lot of. That's why we were able to save so much sanity, because what happens is as you go down the tree, you get, better and better. But like Ben, we just went down one side of the tree
Mm-hmm.
and filled it out. The last thing, which is the gift of the Titans, is like 4,200 of the coins
Oh, wow.
to buy that. And then, once you fill that in, I've still got to go back and fill the 3 solo ones in and 3 on the right side near the bottom. So there's still 6 more to fill in.
Oh, 7, because there's a 3 and then there's the one that shoots
No,
off.
I bought the one. The free res.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I bought that one.
I still need that one.
Yeah, so
yeah,
the thing is, I mean, I don't know if you guys have noticed or not, but I generally take the worst path throughout any sort of choice that this game offers, always. Whether it's, pet battling or going through legendary cloaks or whatever. But I gotta say, at least it's kind of working, mostly. I'm able to actually participate and do things, so...
I mean, yeah, you're rank 8, so...
Yeah.
Even
and
though...
are you enjoying it, or is it a chore for you?
Well, and see, that's the funny thing, is that one of the big reasons why I started going solo is because, I can't consistently be around during the times when everybody else, either has vessels or, is able to be on for visions or whatever. I can guarantee that, well, I mostly can guarantee that I'm going to be on raid nights and, second raid night. But generally, generally it is, okay, I can't really do it before raid most of the time because I have stuff going on. By the time raid's done, it's like, I got to get to bed soon because, there's this whole other life I lead called, life. So
called work.
Yeah. So it's...
you have a real life? What?
I know, it's kind of weird. I prefer not to, but, the only way to keep paying for WoW is to work, which is weird.
Yeah, people don't understand that. Like, podcasters have day jobs.
Yeah.
Some do.
Some
do.
So, Ben, have you figured out the potions yet?
I saw you put something in our raid Discord about how if you go in and into, what is it, the bank or whatever, there's a dead body and whatever color potion's next to that, don't drink that in Orgrimmar and you're good.
Right. And it's the same thing in Stormwind. When you first come out, you kill that first group, right as you come out of the portal. If you look straight ahead, there'll be a glowing note on the ground and a potion next to that. That's the bad one. That reduces your sanity. The rest of them, like the red one gives you fiery breath, which lets you do extra DPS. One of them actually restores 100 sanity. And then there's others that increase your DPS. So we've found those are a big thing. And the other thing that we're doing just to collect more coins is there are, if you look like typically behind the boxes or behind things, you'll see these odd crystals. If you click on those crystals and you bring them all the way back to the ethereal in the front of Stormwind, they give you 25 additional coins per crystal you return. So I think most we found in the 2 lesser areas and the main area was 5 on one run. So that got us 125 extra coins for the talent tree.
And see, this is the kind of stuff that sounds so awesome that I can't wait to do. But because I felt like my time is so constrained, I haven't been able to figure and like try out any of that stuff.
You just need to run with Shoujo because she'll just go click on things and just come back going, help.
Well, see, the first thing that I clicked on was apparently the bad potion, so I never clicked on another potion again because I'm like, oh, the potions in here are bad. They're there to tempt you.
Yeah, but it always, and it changes per run. I mean, weirdly on Tuesday, all 3 runs of ours, the blue potion was the bad one, but yeah, Sage Time says that the dead guy just points out which one's the bad color for that run.
Yeah, and if you really want to push this sort of thing, you can actually get like a weak aura because it's a set sort of rotation. So as soon as you click on the note, you identify which one's the bad one. The weak aura will actually tell you what each one is. Yeah. Because not only is it that all the other ones give you some sort of good benefit, the other part of it is that when those potions run out, you suffer a little bit of a negative thing. So you're better off constantly refreshing the same buff to keep it up.
Oh, as opposed to swapping between a bunch of different ones and
exactly
just constantly getting hit by something. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, well, that's cool. So the good news, though, is that Nevermore and I have been almost consistently going in and doing the minor visions every day. So,
Yep.
we're at least doing that to get the coalescing and
Coalescing coins, yeah.
whatever.
Coalescing vision.
Visions, yeah.
Yeah. So, we're going through and when I'm able to get the vessels, I haven't had a chance to do any of the invasions this week, but I have some vessels left over from last week. So then I'm at the point where it's like, oh no, I'm going to be at 5 vessels and topped off on coalescing visions. So what am I going to do?
Yep.
Well, now
Wait till Tuesday.
Exactly.
And it's not a problem.
Yeah, that's one of the big things.
Till Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I'm going to have to worry about it until after Tuesday at this point, since I'm going to probably go in and try to, do some, 1 or 2 tonight after the show. But yeah, in case listeners, if you didn't see it late today, there's a blue post that came out, and I know we're totally not the show that does news, but the number of horrific or vessels, you're not limited anymore starting Tuesday, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I think
yanks
that's
the unique 5 off of it. Now, if we can
Exactly.
just get them to stack, that would be that'd be the icing on the cake.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh, why don't they stack?
Because they had them as unique 5. I don't know.
No,
Because
they could still stack.
they're horrific. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at least the key parts for that you run into in the 2 things stack to 6, and then you can't get any more until you make a key out of it, and then you can get another 6. But
Yeah. Well, Big Swigs does say you can always put them in your bank. Which I
yeah,
didn't know that.
I'm honestly wondering, like, if you had 5 in your bag and you completed the vision, would they just mail you the one that you get automatically, and it would just sit in your mailbox?
I don't know. That'd be interesting.
That's the problem. I don't want to take that chance.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we don't have to.
Exactly. But so with that coming, and also with the idea that you're not capped at how many pages you can get for, what is it, under 10 or something like that.
Yeah, they up the amount of, what is it? They said up to 4 torn pages of Fear and Flesh quest items can now drop in horrific visions from objectives on the rank 7 to 11 legendary cloak upgrades. It used to be a max of 2. So basically you have to go do, if you're on rank 7 to 11 and you go do the 2 hard areas and the 2 medium areas, you could get 4 in a run.
Yeah, which that'll help because, again, I was starting to feel like I was getting way behind. So
Yeah.
I just need to, totally have you guys carry me through, and then, we can definitely finish up the rest of my cloak in a run or 2. So
Yep.
Cool.
Exactly.
So my criticism about this is that, one, they're doing it when people are now past that for a lot of people, and 2, it doesn't actually solve what's going to happen in ranks 13 through 15, where you're going to need up to 18 pages from the lost zones, which
Oh my
means
God.
you're going to be doing 9 runs. Guys, they just kicked the same problem down the line, and they haven't done anything to solve it.
Well, I mean, to be fair, yes, it's the problem down the line, but at least people will be able to catch up and get to that. So if we're not limited on how many vessels that we can actually have, there's a chance that people will be able to at least group up and work together for it, as opposed to constantly having to, I don't know, be limited to, I don't know what I'm talking about. All I know is that it's going to be easier for me to catch up in the very least, and then I'll just have the same problem as everybody else.
So yeah, because rank 12, which will be the cap next week,
Yep, that's
because we
one
just
run.
did rank 11 this week. Rank 12 is only a book, and then you need 6 for 13, 12 for 14, and 18 for 15.
Jeez.
With a maximum of 2, so that's 3 runs. But I mean, if you're unlimited,
3, 6,
vessels,
and then 9. And because you're unlimited now, where before it would be well, I can only do 5 runs, I guess this will take multiple weeks. Now the people who are quote unquote tryhards are going to be stockpiling, and then on one day go through 9 separate runs.
Yeah, but I mean, if you get it down to, if you get a good, second, if you get something like Leadfoot or something reasonable in the hard visions, you get in a rhythm when you start running them of okay, this is how we did it successfully last time. Let's just fine tune, kind of like rating, I mean, that's how we got 4 of 12 bosses down in raiding so far. It's like, okay, we just need to tweak this. We just need to tweak this. Screw Mott. He can go die in a fire. Okay, we just need to tweak this. Sorry, I hate that
I
boss.
like Mott.
I
I do not like that fight.
I liked Mott having DPS'd it and healed it. It's definitely something that really pushes healers and also makes you have to play a bit smarter as a DPS. You have to throttle your DPS, but still do the damage at a rate that you can break that shield. So I think it is a cool fight. I just know why people get upset because there are certain classes, like let's say a Frost Mage that gets their Glacial Spike and just owns themselves.
Yeah.
Completely with that.
No,
So-
I think my big problem is I don't like dragging the ad around because we can't seem to quite get the rhythm down of killing the ad before we need to do the tank swap so we can cleanly pick up the other ad and prevent it. What's that?
Don't. The strategy that came about is that you never kill the ad. Everybody focuses damages on Mott, and then when the new ad comes in, you do the tank swap, you bring the old ad to Mott, he devours it. It'll put you into the shield phase faster, but because you're spending your entire time outside of the shield phase doing 100% damage on Mott, you'll still do it more effectively than if you're doing the dance.
Well, we'll have to try that.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
So,
well, okay, I can see one of two things horribly happening with our group.
Exactly.
One, we still end up killing the ad and everything like that anyway, because it turns out that, the dance is just too weird and people are dropping puddles in odd places or something like that, which I can see happening. Or two, we are in so many shield phases that, like Hunts the Wind and Dakar and Pandora just kill themselves way too fast every single time because we're trying to catch up on the DPS.
Exactly. And
you know what? I would love to come raid with you guys the next time you are doing that. I know you got. I know your raid
next Wednesday.
Okay, so I will be there because
okay.
I have now healed this thing on heroic. I love this.
Wait, are you going to be there, John promise, or are you going to be there, Ben promise?
This is going to be a Tetsemi promise, the ironclad promise.
All right, sounds good. By the way, I want to I want to go back to the tryhard comment. Honestly, and again, Ben, I know you don't have time to do it daily, but honestly, Manny, I'm not trying hard. And I just run the 2 zone dailies and the lesser invasion or the daily invasion every day. And like I said, last week, I ended up capped with 5 vessels and then 20,000 coalescing coins to buy 2 more vessels. And I wasn't like farming rares, opening every chest. I was just like, what's the minimum I need to do to get this zone done? Okay, done. So I think they've made it eminently doable that you can, if you have the ability to play every day and just do the 2 zones plus the lesser invasion, you can get enough vessels that by the time you hit week 15 you'll have 9 vessels.
I can see that happening because before I took the vacation I was I had everything I needed, and I was hitting the cap and everything like that, and even when I had to, catch up after a week or something, I was still hitting the cap, and then took a vacation and then got super busy. So yeah, if I was, don't boo-hoo me. Anyways, yeah, if
we love you never.
If it does come down to, having all the stuff just by doing the minimum amount and everything, that's pretty awesome. And even then, the people who are, okay, so, well, let's put it this way. Of the 3 people on the show right now, one of us could potentially be called a tryhard, compared to the others at least. So let me ask you this, Manny.
I wouldn't call you that. You're a decent person.
Well, when I mean tryhard, I really mean like, min-maxer more than tryhard. Because the tryhards are the ones who are like obnoxious and nobody likes them. The min-maxers are the ones who really put in a lot of time and research, and they're really striving to be the best that they possibly can, which is something that I know that you do. So if you have the ability to run, all 9 runs at a time, is that something that you would do?
Yes, because we raid on Tuesday. Well, we're likely to get a. You know what? By that week, I'm not sure if we'll still be raiding. We might have already um, cleared our raid for the time.
Yeah.
But if we're trying to progress, like I put it on myself, and a lot of people do, to try and bring as much to the table as they can, which means before the raid every week, I'm trying to get my cloak up to cap.
Mm-hmm.
Right. This week, I did 4 separate runs to get it to the cap. I've already gone over cap and had to uh do a separate run just for my own fun to get the run with to see how many I could clear out. Um, and then I try to get back as close to cap as possible. Now cap's no longer going to exist, which means I won't do. I there's this weird tension, and I'm looking to
I
see
know
if it
where you're going.
changes. Yeah, I'm looking to see if it changes without a cap. But definitely heading into this week. But last week I could not do runs with other people because I was concerned that I needed to make sure I had enough runs to do all the things I need to do this week, and then also be ready to go forward. Heading into next week, where I only have to do one run.
Yeah. It's like,
Uh,
oh, this is a bank week.
Yeah, this was going to be, like you said, a bank week where I was like, okay, now I can just like get back up to cap and be ready for later weeks, because like people were saying, the cap really isn't the 5 runs. The cap is the 5 runs plus another 2.5 ready to go, so that when you need to be doing like we said 18 separate objectives over 2 runs each, you were getting there as quickly as possible, because there have been people, especially in the early weeks, where they fell behind and they felt pressure to catch up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, being as someone who is, by definition at this point, like a dirty casual, I didn't have that pressure until I realized that I didn't care.
So, Ben, here's a question for you, because the whole system is everyone's focused on you got to get the cloak, you got to get it leveled. Theoretically, you can do the last 2 bosses with a level 1 cloak, because all you need is the ability of that cloak to cleanse the stuff from Nazoth and not be mind controlled.
Okay.
So
that's actually a fun interaction. If you ever walk into the Nazoth fight and
without
pull
the cloak
without your
on,
cloak attached, you
you're-
become instantly mind controlled.
for the whole fight.
That
Yeah.
is so cool.
Yeah. So we'll know real quick who forgot their cloak. So, but the question is, because the cloak kind of feeds on itself of the system the cloak is feeding, besides that fight, is a secondary system of reducing the amount of corruption on your gear to manageable levels. So the question is, and I think I know the answer, but the question is, how much corrupted pieces do you have that you're currently actually wearing, and how many pieces do you have saved up when you level the cloak up so that you can actually put them on?
Oh man. Okay. So I've got 2 stories to tell, because, you know, I'm working on 2 characters. On my healer, I've got the bracers that have the whatever the thing that
The
everybody
void
has.
thing, yeah.
Yeah, so that everybody is the void ritual.
Right.
And because it's like, well, a bunch of people have it, so, you know, might as well do it because it's a buff. It's and Manny, I'm not going to get into secondary stats with you on this, because we could have that entire conversation again. So that bit of corruption is about 10 to 15 item levels below what I have when I'm not raiding. I also have a belt that for 75 corruption has the infinite star one, which is apparently the best you can get, which as a healer, I don't really need that when I'm healing, but
Yes, you do.
but the thing is there's no way I can wear that right now because of the 75 corruption on it.
Yeah, exactly.
I've also got a mace, which I actually have a decent weapon. I still need a good offhand though. But it's got some sort of corruption on it. I don't even know what it has. I don't care. But I've got my mace, which is always countered. And then when I'm in raid, I have the bracers that I put on, and then that leaves me with about 7 corruption that I can still use.
Right.
So
Wait, so you're at net 0, or right?
I'm at
So
like -7.
-7.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I still have 7 corruption I can get, but I mean, any piece that I put on is going to get me corrupted.
Right. But and running with a little corruption, I think generally it's like tanks and healers. If you're running 19 and under, you're fine, and DPS can run like 39 and under because they can just avoid the eyeball that's coming at them.
Depending on class.
Unless it's the
Yeah.
Rathion fight.
Yeah, depending on class and the Rathion fight. Yeah. But like I think I'm running at 13 right now with bracers, gloves, and a ring or haste pants. I forget which. But yeah, it's an interesting, like, I'll go to ask Mr. Robot and look at it, and then just we'll have a violent disagreement of you're crazy. I'm not wearing that.
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion.
Well, there's so many different things that go into determining like what's good and what's not, and it's all
Yeah.
at this point with corruption, with secondary stats, with gem slots, with everything.
Essences.
It basically comes down to, hey, how are you playing the game?
Yeah. No, and that's what I had to look like. It's ask Mr. Robot's like, as a tank, these are the four essences you should be wearing, and I look at it and go, yeah, my healers are gonna hate me for wearing that. Not gonna do it. Sorry.
Yeah, well, when Nevermore goes through her different like traits and stuff on Azurite gear, she's like, well, how about this one? I'm like, I won't like you if you have that one.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, oh, that one gives you more health, or that one protects you. That's a good one. You're a tank.
Yeah.
And I try to do the best that I can. But,
yeah. And Fire Dragon. The problem is Raid Bots doesn't do tanks. Tried it.
Yeah.
Doesn't do tanking gear. It only does DPS gear. So have to use AMR. So, but there's one, I ran into this on an alt Ben, and it's the 410 BOA gear that you get dropped has 3 rings. Like literally almost every piece I have was, your secondary and stats are increased by X amount if you're running over 25 corruption. And I'm like,
yeah,
oh God, they're just throwing it at you now. Come on.
I got one of those too. I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
And so, okay, going to second story here. On my Vulpira Mage, which I'm loving, and she's great, and we have fun. We have so much fun together. She'll never get a weapon though, but that whatever. She got boosted, so I've been doing emissary quests on getting the chest on her. I'm trying to gear her up as fast as I possibly can, and so many pieces are dropping with corruption on them,
right,
that I can't equip any of them because when I was getting them, I didn't have my cloak yet because I was just starting the quest line. And
yeah,
I don't know if you guys know this or not, but that's a long ass quest line.
it really is.
So I'm going
especially
through,
for an alt. The first
yeah.
time through, fine, but for an alt, like skip.
Oh yeah,
cutscene.
So I'm going through and I'm like, okay, if I finally get the cloak. I'm like, great. Now let's clear some of the corruption off of these things, because there's no way in hell I'm gonna have anywhere close to the corruption to, put on all this better gear that I have to get my item level up so I can get better gear if it's corrupted. And it was just such a bummer, because I'm like, I'm getting all this cool stuff, but I can't wear it, and then I have to cleanse it, because otherwise I can't get stuff to replace it right away. So
yeah,
it's kind of
that's the thing. If you're just clearing it for item level, like, okay, it's a 410 piece, so I'll cleanse it, but that really doesn't do good. Whereas you get a force, like the belt we had dropped, the BOA belt or BOE belt that we had dropped was, man, it was like top rank infinite stars at 445 item level. We're like, good Lord, that's several million on the auction house if we just wanted to sell it. So
yeah.
So sell it and pay for guild repairs forever.
Or she wore the best in slot belt.
She wore the best in slot belt. Like, screw it, it's good for me. I'm fine.
It had an eyeball on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, now that we've had a couple of weeks with this, I mean, how are you guys feeling about like the whole corruption and the way the cloak's working and gear and everything like that? Because, I mean, it is seemingly way more complicated than it was before to just kind of decide what to wear. But even more so, like, I mean, all of us are on raid teams. Manny, you're on a heroic team versus us. Like, how are you seeing all this? Is it a really good addition to the game? Is it interesting? Are you enjoying it, or is it just one more hurdle to kind of get through to, down the bosses that you need?
Um, Honestly, I have a love-hate with corruption. I love that corruption gives these effects that are not tied to item level, so my raid team has been able to like trade it around based on like who needs what and that sort of stuff because hey, if it drops in heroic, it's this item level. If it drops in normal, it's this item level. We don't have to worry about Titan Forge being like, I'm really sorry guys, this is bad for me, but I can't trade it. So I love that aspect about it.
Mm-hmm.
The problem I have with corruption is that it basically comes out to a lot of free damage, which means that that it can easily be mathed down, and it isn't that interesting. Like when you bring it to that level, I know how much eye level if shooting stars is, or sorry, infinite stars is. I know how much an eye level a different corruption is, and because all corruption follows the same sort of corruption level, it's not like certain ones have different drawbacks that I would have to consider, and that makes it just very straightforward in ways that I wish it wasn't. And that's a very strange thing to say because I know at a different level, people are looking at corruption being like, my head is exploding and I just want to cleanse all this. And so in that way, it's like I don't think it's serving either side. Like I would like it to be something where it's like, oh, what's this little thing? It's like, okay, well, I get a burst of haste, but when that burst ends, the haste drops down, kind of like the stuff that we were seeing in Crucible of Storms, or rather, yeah, Crucible of Storms, where people were like, okay, I like that effect on the item, or I don't want to deal with that. And it was different from the various eye levels.
Yeah, and see, coming at it from a tank perspective, I like the again, I think it's a good idea. I'm enjoying it. I have like so I have almost a full DPS set along with my full tanking set, but then I'm also carrying a third set of gear, which is okay, this is item level 445. So if I need to take off a corrupted piece to put a different slot corrupted piece in, I've got a replacement piece that I can that's not corrupted that I can put in. So I keep it, I instead of cleansing it, I keep it available and I just slot it in. So I'm carrying like more gear than I've ever carried because usually with the DPS side, it was I carried my 3 Azurite pieces and a weapon and maybe a trinket, for that side, and everything else just kind of worked at the level I operate or we operate. Everything else just kind of worked. But now, because there's different corruption levels that work better with DPS versus the tank stats and stuff like that, like Manny, I got the haste pants that proc, like 1275 haste, and for a protection warrior, it's like okay, free global cooldowns essentially. I can hit all the buttons as fast as I want when that thing procs, which is great. Um, I've got the weapon that does it builds up to like 25 stacks and then does a cone worth of damage of 5% of my total base or my total health, um, to the mob in front of me. So I've got a weak aura that says, okay, push, last stand to bump your health up a little bit more to get more DPS out of it. But I haven't found a really good, and I don't know that there are, even listening to Jason and Spencer talk about it, I don't know that there's a good or interesting tank corruption or even a healing corruption. So I think, unfortunately, with the implementation they've done, you're right, it is mathable because it's mainly just DPS gains.
Yeah, I think that the unique corruption they have on the two-hander is good for tanks where it will actually do damage based on your armor. So if you're a tank and you could do something to quickly boost your armor, like let's say demon spikes or even doing something with a bear, then that's great. That gives you a
Yeah.
sort of hook interaction, much like you're doing, where you're like, hey, like just before this goes off, I'm going to like boost up my health with Last Stand just to get like an extra thing. But again, it's damage, and
Yeah.
and if you're doing your cooldown to get more damage, you're already dealing with a fight that you're virtually getting on farm,
Yeah.
right?
No,
Um,
exactly. If I'm not having to manage my cooldowns to stay alive, but I'm managing them for trying to help carry, DPS and stuff like that, then yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
as a healer, when I'm doing a healing set, I'm actually running around with more corruption than uh when I'm DPSing on certain fights. Uh, and that's and it's actually interesting because I will switch my armor on a fight by fight basis.
Right.
I am lucky enough now that I've got for at least my main spec, because I main as enhancement. I have at least some corruption in every slot that I can switch in and out.
Right.
I typically don't have that in every slot just because my cloak can't handle that right now.
Yeah,
oh no,
exactly.
you
Yeah.
need to do that on the next raid. Just put on every piece of corruption you have for one pull, just to see
No,
what happens.
the
Oh,
problem is as soon as the pull goes off, all the corruption effects hit and he's dead on the floor.
no, no, because luckily enough, the myriad of corruption I have is low enough that I'm not getting like the 80 corruption and stuff that
Oh, okay.
kills people. It's just that like I would be having to like run away from like the thing from beyond, or having like cascading catastrophes going off, and I don't
Yeah,
want to have to deal with that.
especially now when you're
All right,
Yeah.
Tet, Sunday night, I'm gonna
Yeah.
wear every piece of corrupted gear I have.
God, for one pull.
For
trash,
Well,
for
we'll
trash.
see if we do well. Maybe for more. Because
Yeah,
I've got infinite stars. That's supposed to be really good. So I'll put it on with that 75 corruption,
yeah.
and then we'll see what happens.
Okay, let's get your cloak up as high as we can, though.
No,
Well,
why
you
would
know
we
what?
do
You're
that?
already rank 6. All you have to do is go and do the pull. As soon as you do the pull, just give yourself that 6-second immunity so you can just like own for a little bit and then die as soon as it ends.
Would you say your cloak is rank 8?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's 8. So yeah.
Okay, so if we get you to 9, that'll get you 8 more corruption resistance.
Oh, that
'cause
totally helps against that 75.
I know. 9 and 10 are the same, and then 11 it bumps up to 42,
Yeah.
and then the max you get is 50. So,
Oh wow, it's only
So-
50.
Well, until you can hit 15, and then you can do the
you
clears
start
to get the
running fast,
additional.
right?
Yeah. Well, you can either do horrific visions, or you can kill N'Zoth, and they will give you these little fragments that'll give you like +3 corruption resistance
Okay.
each time. So there's that. But the other part of corruption that I'm really annoyed at, especially with the implementation, is how infrequent it is. Because there is such a wide variety of corruptions that are out there. You can get like the verse, you can get the racing pulse, you can get stuff that is just like flat out amps for particular things, or you can get these like, infinite stars and all these different procs. I was expecting that we would see it drop at a much higher frequency, so that you would have to pick and choose, and that you wouldn't be so concerned about cleansing because you had another chance at something later.
I have
And
a mage who is undergeared who would like to talk to you.
Yeah,
Right?
I think it's really RNG, because I think Roe, if it's Roe or someone else on a raid team, they've seen like they got the wrists and they've seen like one other corrupted piece drop for them, and then other piece it's like Ben's mage, or mine lately. It's just like, oh look, all this corrupted gear.
Yeah, it's weirdly RNG. I mean, I so when I was going through and doing my horrific visions and stuff on my healer, a piece of gear would drop here and there and stuff. I've probably gotten like 5 or 6 pieces of corrupted gear on her, and I've cleansed some because the corruption wasn't anything that I cared about, or I really needed the upgrade, but I didn't have the anti-corruption to work with it. And then just getting so much on my mage too. I'm just like hearing people who've only gotten one or two pieces like total. I'm just like, what are you doing? And this is coming from me, who I don't do anything in the game anymore. So it's just bizarrely like
it's like Titan forging, where there's a
Yeah.
chance there will be outliers. I'm sitting on like 12 pieces of corrupted gear. I've had the first week where I was like, okay, I'm going to run Mythic Plus like crazy. I did about 2 or 3 dozen runs and
Right.
didn't see corruption on any of them, and was quite upset and being like, what in the world? And then in other weeks where I haven't, and I was just doing like raids and such, I've gotten corrupted gear and I've seen it drop, right? So I know it exists. I've gotten
Yeah.
a lot of it myself. But again, it is like Titan forging, where there is just a chance. And if there was a high chance of it, right, it means that even the people, the people who are getting a lot of it and they get a lot more, they're cleansing more. The people who weren't getting that much and weren't cleansing at all, because they're like, all I have is the echoing void or the void ritual that I just got, they would be getting enough that they could choose between stuff. Regardless, because this is the last patch of the expansion and stuff is not going to matter going forward, just for their testing purposes, having more of it out there and seeing what people do with it
Yeah.
would have been good for them. And for the player base, being able to play with that power and be like, oh my goodness, I'm so strong, would just be fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
I
so.
agree. Now, Manny, I thought, didn't they put a hot fix in like for week 2, or once the mythic race to world first was done, that the weekly chest you get from mythic always drops corrupted gear? Because, or am I just getting lucky?
Your weekly Mythic Plus chest always drops corrupted gear
Okay.
unless you get a trinket which cannot have corruption.
Right.
Your
Okay.
weekly PvP chest also has that same stipulation, but has the chance of dropping Azurite, which can't get corrupted, as well as
Yeah.
the trinket. So it's less. There's chance that you won't get you won't get a corruption piece, just because you will get something that can't be corrupted. But those are your two main chances. So everybody who's like, I need corrupted gear, cap out your conquests, get your weekly PvP chest, do a Mythic Plus, even if it's a Mythic 2, because
Yeah.
corruption is so ridiculous. And I know we weren't going to talk about secondaries, but corruption blows secondaries out the window. If you
Yeah.
got a 420 versus a 430 and the corruption is there, it'll most likely mean that you ignore your item level and you go with the corruption if you can deal with it.
Even if the
Yeah.
secondary stats are crap.
Even if the secondary stats are crap, because it's
It makes
raw
up for
damage.
it.
Like, you have
Yeah.
that belt and it's like infinite stars, and I don't care what those stats are, infinite stars is going to carry you. We had a demon hunter in our group who is running something around the lines of 60 or 70 corruption and had infinite stars do 20% of their DPS.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
And that was that post nerf?
That was post nerf.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was doing much more before that.
So I guess I'm putting that on, even though I'm healing, just to kill the bosses for us.
Or at
Yeah.
least use it in horrific visions.
All right. So just so that our entire raid team knows, I'm carrying DPS now. That's my
There you
job. With my Infinite Stars belt, it is just completely. That's all that's going to happen. Is I'm carrying the DPS.
There you go.
Okay.
Um,
So I'm gonna just kind of shift us a little bit and ask a couple questions and see what you guys think about something,
all
or
right.
maybe only ask one question, because who knows how much time it'll actually take.
Alpha. No, I'm kidding.
Oh no, it has nothing to do with the alpha, but it does have to do with Shadowlands. So, okay, from what I've seen, everybody really loves the corrupted effects on the gear and everything. Yes, it does come with a negative to it, and you kind of have to balance it. That's why we have the cloak and blah blah blah, all that stuff. So, if they added, instead of like say Titan forging or war forging or any sort of forging and stuff going forward, and they just added extra effects onto gear just randomly without any sort of negative, like we have to get an anti-corruption thing or something, Do you think that that's a successful way to move forward with this sort of model?
No.
Yes and no.
What
I
if it
guess
had no secondary stats, but it had? No, I'm kidding.
no.
No, actually, Ben, you laugh, but I actually have a 445 wrist that only has strength and stamina on it, no secondary stats,
Oh, I love that.
but it has an on use that it increases my parry by a huge amount for a set amount of time, and then when it's done, it does a bunch of damage out.
Yeah,
And but it's not a corrupted piece. It's
Yeah.
just it's a weird, like, I think raid set piece, or I don't even know where I got it. But it's like, oh, this is great. It's got no secondary stats. It's only got a positive effect on it. It's sitting in my bags because the corrupted gear is more interesting.
well, to be fair, it's also a used piece of gear, which nobody ever does those.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
yes, people do
exactly.
those, and that I would find that piece would be interesting. But going to like what you're saying, I think that this is the good start, and if they iterate on it, they're going in a good direction. The biggest thing about um, uh, having this cool little effects on stuff is that you are looking at gear. You're not just being like, "Oh, what's the item level? Throw it on." You're actually like, "What does this do? Is this something that helps my character?" And that I think is a great thing. Um, I really feel that because everything's been tied into the cloak and the visions run, that's the biggest flaw with 8.3, because it's just another list of chores that you have to do to stay current, and it's the biggest reason that my alt has been like turned into a bank alt, because I don't want to keep that treadmill running on like multiple characters.
Mm-hmm. Well,
No,
it's not fun.
yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I think part of it, probably don't want to go down this rat hole this late in the show, but things like account wide essences would definitely help alts. But I almost feel like their design intent, even though they haven't stated it, for this expansion was the pendulum swing from last expansion where everybody ran, a lot of alts because they wanted to see story and stuff like that. And then they got into BFA and they said, no, we need to make this very focused for the character they're on and give them as much to do for that character. And then all the people with alts kind of went, okay, how do we get them caught up? We don't. Okay. And I think a lot of them, uh, I think a lot of people honestly checked out, like they got their main up, saw the story, started doing stuff, and kind of went, well, I could work on alts, but there's nothing different about the storyline, and there's a huge backlog. I mean, Ben, you said you got your cloak, it started at 50 and you were up to 68 like on Tuesday.
I'm 68 or 69 at this point.
Right. So I mean, getting the cloak caught up isn't horrible, but it's just all the other gearing systems and stuff that, to me, without a storyline or something, an interesting level of mechanics behind them, I just don't know that I'm going to level any more alts.
Well, for me, it's been that I like to have my characters at a certain level of viability. So if I'm heroic raiding, I want to have my characters able to step into heroic raid.
Right.
Um, the checklist of things that I need to deal with is just too much, right? Like it's less now. I've gotten my Heart of Azeroth up to 80, so do I really care to push it any further? I guess not. I can leave at Azerite along. But beforehand, it was just like, yeah, if I'm not collecting as much AP as possible, I'm leaving stuff on the table, and there is no catch up like like there was before. It's this many world quests that will get you this much AP, and if you don't do it, they expire in this time, and then you're behind, right?
Yeah,
Um,
for a heroic raider, I can see that.
yeah. Uh, well, I don't want to say that's for heroic raider. That is a mentality that is not required for a heroic raider. When people say that I am min maxy, I am beyond what is required to do heroic
Yeah.
raid.
And
at all.
But I mean, Jason and Spencer, do the same thing. Now they're, they were trying to get to 80 as fast as they could, and they would go through and clear out, both sides, all the world quests every day, and then do all the, dailies and all that.
Hmm.
And but they're focused on mainly one character. Trying to do that with an alt would would drive me up the wall.
Yeah, and so the AP grind was one grind, and then
Yeah.
they added in the essences, and we've talked about essences and
Yeah.
like how much it requires to just like get those up to a strong point. And then they added in the cloak, which means that there was another set of dailies, and once I did that, I had to do a certain amount of runs. Like I said, we're going to be reaching a point where you're going to need to do 9 runs in to get
Yeah.
ready for the raid, and you're going to do that again later in the week for your alt. Like that
No.
is just beyond anything that I even wanted to consider. So
Right.
so it's just so much things that you need to deal with on top of the fact that because you are trying to be competitive, you are trying to get the right corruptions because hey, yeah, get that infinite stars, or maybe you want to like get like a bunch of haste things or echoing void, whatever it was that was like the top at the time. But to do that, you needed to farm because it was a random chance. You couldn't target any of these. You still can't target any of them. And unlike Azurite gear, where if you ran enough Mythic Plus, you could get Residium and then buy specifically what you
Right.
wanted. There is no currency system for corruption, so you are tossed to the winds in randomness. And the only way you can combat that is to take enough rolls of the dice that eventually you get that lucky roll.
So, Manny, back to the question Ben asked, like, if we just had positive effects with no negative effect? Honestly, I think what a lot of people, at least I've been hearing, is while this is an interesting system, bring back tier sets, because I think a lot of people are tired of, okay, the neck piece is taken up by one thing, so we're never going to change that.
Mhm.
The Azurite armor, you got 3 slots for that, so those are always taken up. And now you've got the cloak, which takes up, so like 5 of your slots are always, to me, not, the decision is kind of a given of what you want to wear there. But
But tier sets
I'm
made that worse.
what's that?
But tier sets made that worse
I,
because you were.
they didn't. I mean, when you had 6 pieces, at least you say, oh, I've got an interesting helm. I'm saying bring back both. Do tier sets, but mix in some additional pieces. Like John, wants to have fun. Bring back some additional effects on pieces so that, like, oh, I've got tier legs, but that's my 5th piece. Oh, but this other set of legs dropped, which is a lesser item level, but it's got a cool, DPS upgrade, or it's got a cool self heal, or something like that. Mix the two in. Let's go crazy. Bring back tier sets, but also bring back set pieces that have interesting stuff on them.
like, what about like when I'm saying like effects and stuff, I'm talking about things that, like, if this were Diablo, some of the really awesome stuff that happens with Diablo gear, or some of the extra added effects that happened for our artifact weapons, or
Yeah.
even some of the legendaries from last expansion. Just like you get a piece of gear and then, ooh, this one has something special on it. It's really cool. As opposed to, oh, it has a gem slot, I get to add a stat. It's like, give it something, a neat effect or ability or something that procs that's really neat, as opposed to just specifically, okay, well, this is a better piece of gear, it has higher numbers. Make it more
Or
interesting.
yeah,
And
So
or
I
and
even to
agree.
solve Manny's problem with secondary stats is stop making gems um stat boosters, and instead let us cut gems on jewel crafting that give on use effects or proc effects. And now you've opened up a whole level of customization of,
oh,
oh, I
that's
want the
cool.
gem that I want the gem that does this. I want the gem that does this. And and then you get blacksmiths. Remember back in Wrath, blacksmiths could actually add sockets
Belt
to
buckle.
gear. You know, let's just go crazy here. Let's bring in the professions. You know, start doing stuff.
Or like,
I
scribes
I
could write things that change your abilities.
I really did enjoy that. The reason that they removed that was that it became again another thing that you could do before you actually got to enjoy your gear. It's like, hey, I got a new belt. Well, no, I can't use this belt because I have to go and get a gem and a belt buckle, right, and get that thing enchanted or whatever it was. Like it just became like here's a checklist of stuff you can do before you can do the belt, and that's why they stripped a lot of that down.
Yeah, but I think
On the
that
other
stole a
hand,
lot
I
of
agree
fun
with
of it
you.
out.
Yes, I agree with you. That is part of the RPG experience. That is like, I've got this. Let me like put my the stuff that I want onto this to make it like great. And I do love the gem idea where the gems would have like cool little procs and that. Honestly, what you guys are talking about is like making all gear act like trinkets, where trinkets have maybe one or two stats. Like it'll be like, here's a bunch of intellect, but then it'll also have your abilities have a chance to proc this, and it does a cool little effect. And BFA has done a great job with the trinkets, especially in the last little bit where the trinkets have a really cool visual effect. You put on a
Yes,
trinket
the
and you're like,
wings.
the wings, right? You
Mhm.
have the slash going around you. Back in Eternal Palace, you had like the lamprey that would fly off from you
Yeah,
and hit something. They've done a great job with trinkets. When we talk about like, hey, let's have this gear have positive effects, and when you talk about tier sets, those aren't completely gone, and I do like the way that they have been doing certain sets, as it were, where you have stuff where it's a set bonus that is split between two rings. So the Mechagon rings, you can choose what your condition is and what your bonus is. I think that's brilliant, and I hope that they do more of that. You have gear like in Eternal Palace where it's here's a trinket that puts a dot on an enemy, and here's a weapon that if that dot is on the enemy, it gets an ability, and it
yeah,
doesn't even need to be your trinket that did it.
right.
That is great. So, like, I think those are the way you can have set bonuses without having tier sets. Because as much as we want to say that, like, yeah, Azurite gear locks me into these slots, tier did that, but for more pieces. So I can understand that I would love to have this bonus that I'm seeking for to complete even after I've cleared. I'd really like to get my tier set bonus. I think that was great and I would love for that to come back, but I would like it to be spread out over these pieces that are more modular like the ring, so that if if I want to, I can get this nature damage effect, and I'm looking for the nature damage effect that pairs with this mace that is like, if you hit three enemies in one attack, you get this bonus because I want to do an AoE build. And
Yeah,
then if I'm doing a single target, I'd switch that mace, and suddenly it becomes something I think about, that I am also hunting down maybe different pieces that are switching fight to fight. And I love that. That to me is great. But a lot of people will complain bitterly about that because that would mean that they would need to carry different sets of gears based on the fight, and it would feel complicated. So I just don't think that there is a perfect answer that's going to please everybody.
I have the
And
perfect answer.
okay,
So you find that interesting to go and min max, and I'm using that as a positive descriptor. I just
yeah,
want to make sure that's very clear to everybody listening, because you play an entirely different game than I play, which I find so fascinating, and I actually that's one reason why I love talking to you about it. Just seeing it through your eyes. So as a min maxer, you go through and you will find those different maces or whatever to try to maximize in every specific fight. How can you be the most beneficial? Me as a dirty casual, I absolutely love the fact that I can find something. Oh, this has a really cool freaking effect. Awesome. And I'm happy. I'm not looking for, the specific one that I need that'll give me the most damage in this exact situation. I'm finding gear that has extra bonuses on it that had just random cool effects that I think is pretty cool. And to me, that is what's exciting, and that's what I would love to see more of. And you're right, if putting things like, trinket procs and stuff like that on just other random gear and stuff would make it more, interesting and fun, I'm all for it. Because at this point, I don't know if you know this or not, I'm not a big fan of secondary stats. But having some sort of extra added effect or something on that actually makes me excited about potentially swapping gear or changing things, or if it makes me sad to go from a piece of gear that has this really cool, awesome effect to something that is actually better. It's gonna suck to give that away, but for the time that I had it, I had a lot of fun with that piece of gear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
See,
agree with you.
I really like what they attempted to do with the trinket from Mechagon and the island where you had the three colors and you had the three punch cards, and that allowed you to customize the effects that trinket gave you. Like, are you farming the spare parts? Okay, slot in the card that gave you extra spare part trinkets. Are you looking for a specific recipe that's only accessible on the vendor when you're running this one particular hacking card? Put that in. I wish they had done more with that style of system for not only Mechagon but other things, because it gave you interesting choices of what's your play style, how can we cater to your play style.
Yeah, exactly. And I really think that, like, looking at how rating or PvP or anything is put together and everything, like, is Blizzard kind of trying to make it competitive, or are they trying to make a fun game? And at this point, again, maybe because I'm a dirty casual, I'm looking for the fun game.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to say this flat out, and I'm sure I've said this on my show, but I wholly believe that the push to make things into more esport friendly formats is hurting the game. The fact that we have Mythic Plus and everything is needs to be set up in a certain way means that dungeons can't be as creative as they used to be. The fact that we have less the world first race, I feel that Blizzard has been hands off enough with that it hasn't affected it that much. But the fact that they try and push every system so that it works well in PvP as well as in PvE means that things aren't as fun. I don't mind if somebody is so aggressively overpowered because they've geared out that I can't really do a decent fight against them, because that makes me look at that person and be like, what gear do they have? Right? That
Yeah.
pushes me to be like, okay, let me see if I can do that. And maybe it's like PvP gear and I just want to be like, no, forget it. And I'm just going to like put them on my friends list and know what zone they're in and stay away. But that would mean that I'm engaged in a game in a more social thing than the random, like, I guess this shard got flooded with like a bunch of people and now they need to super balance this. Like, I don't need the super balance. I just need a fun experience.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I liked Benthic Gear, because it was just something you could do as like a solo player that was a path to get really strong gear, right? It wasn't every slot, but it was something you could do. And based on your level of engagement, you could push it as far as you wanted to.
Yeah.
I'm sure Spencer told you about like his trying to push for the lottery where he had to get the gem socket,
Yeah.
the right rock, and then also a tertiary on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that to me was just a fun little thing that you could do outside of rating, right?
Mm-hmm.
But unless you were pushing like mythic level or trying to be as min max, and again, we're using it in a non pejorative manner, right? Unless you were trying to squeeze as much juice out of it as possible, it's something you could also leave on the table and not feel bad. I like those systems. I really do want them to go forward with stuff. And yes, some of them are going to be relatively boring, but
you can just not read him in chat. He's
no,
not
no.
on the episode.
when he makes good points, he makes good points, and that's why I kind of avoid shows he's on because he's just gonna like stick it to me. So
Don't
now I
ever
get
say
to
that.
talk to-
Don't ever say that.
But regardless, the flip side to that is when what I would like them to do, and hopefully they listen to this for Shadowlands, but I would like them to do sort of challenges, and those challenges are set up for a certain level of gear, right? Kind of like the Mage Tower. Everybody was talking about the Mage Tower. Some people loved it, some people hated it. It wouldn't be as difficult as the Mage Tower, and
Good.
it would be designed so that eventually you would outgear it. But you would do the challenge, you would get a power reward, right? And so people would go and do the challenges that they would want to do, and the hard actors would go and try and do it as undergeared as possible to get that power. And later on, when you have alts or when you need to get that power later on on whatever character you're doing, you're already overgearing it. You can smash through it. It's an easier thing to do by the normal progress of the game. It gets nerfed and becomes more alt friendly, more easily attainable for the general populace. I think that that is a good system that they should implement more, rather than these. You need to get 100,000 honor. Please grind that out before you're able to compete on the next tier.
Yeah, and it sounds like RJ says in the chat that sounds like Torghast, and I think they're right. That does sound a little bit like, what Torghast is like a combination of horrific visions and withered training, and we'll see what comes out of it. Ben, I know we're at the end of the show, but one thing I just want to ask real quick is, looking back over all the expansions, I almost know what John's answer is going to be for this, but what is the one system that got left behind that you would rather they had brought forward, from that expansion? Just one from that expansion.
I can tell you right away.
What's that?
The artifact weapons.
That's mine as well, and I bet it's John's. But Manny, what about you? What system did you like that you're sorry they left behind?
In Mista Pandaria, they had a system where once you hit certain reputation points with a faction, you would get a story element towards
Yes.
towards that,
Yes.
including at the end when you hit revered, you would get like the final story element.
Yep.
Right?
Patch
That is
5.1.
great.
Yep, 5.1 rules,
Yes.
baby.
Yeah.
That was amazing. It like I tweeted
kept
out
you
when I
engaged.
got it kept me engaged. I tweeted out because I'm now exalted with every faction that they put out in all of BFA. And some of these factions are the most lifeless factions I have ever dealt with in the history of this game. I am sorry, that needs to change. It's not going to be true for all factions because we know we're going to go into these covenants and they're all going to have their stories and they're going to be kind of the de facto factions, but there are going to be lesser factions that aren't part of the covenants, and I want to have a good story behind them. The reason that people love older factions is that they had their own little quirks.
Yeah.
These newer factions are completely interchangeable, and I just like that.
Okay.
Yeah, the
Oh,
Go
go ahead,
ahead.
Tet.
no, I was gonna say the last two factions, the Rajani and the Kith. No, I don't even know
Ultimate Accord.
the Ultima Accord. See, I don't even. It's not even that memorable to me. Yeah, I hit honored. The only difference it made hitting honored was I went over to quartermaster and went, okay,
Stuff I
got
don't
what
want.
I could at honored, wandered off. I hit revered. I did this. I'm like, oh, they moved the tier, the third rank of this essence down. I can buy it now. Okay, bought it. There's nothing other than buying stuff for advancing these reputations. And you're right. I don't know why they don't understand or aren't willing to put the 5-1 system for reputation story into the system.
Okay, last thing before we close out the show, and this is probably the most important question I'm going to be asking tonight. What's the worst faction? I'll start. The saber-tooth tigery faction or whatever from Warlords of Draenor. Because all you do is you walk in and you go in their area and you kill crap. And that's all you do. Saberon. Thank you, Sage Time.
Yeah. Manny?
Okay. Worst faction. Yeah, I there's so many that are just so flat that I don't like. Can either of you recall a single faction from Cataclysm?
Yeah, the Cenarian Circle.
Oh, okay, yep. That for me, it's just like, yeah, and I can't. I'm like trying to piece together one that I hated, and even if I hated it, at least that meant something. Like going for the insane title, right? That meant something. It was like, oh man, now I'm gonna be like hated with like all of the Bilgewater or the Steam Whittle cartel. Like that
Well,
might be
but
crazy.
see, and to me, the goblin, just the fact that there's I think it's 4 goblin factions, and each town was part of that faction, even though there wasn't a story behind it, there was enough of a headcanon lead in that made those factions interesting to me. Like, oh, this goblin, cartel or faction runs this town, and this one runs this town. And so you've got to do stuff around that made it interesting. My gut reaction was going to be the Syndicate, because as a non-rogue trying to level that of any type of thing was just, how much money can I throw at the auction house for lock boxes to turn in for reputation? But that was my gut reaction, but I can definitely see there's a rogue element to that. So I don't think that's the worst. The ones to me, because I didn't PvP, were the 2 battleground factions, the Frost Wolf and the other one, because it was just like, I'm just getting reputation for doing stuff in battlegrounds, and there's nothing really interesting about
How
it.
dare you? You can buy tabards.
Oh, whatever. Okay.
I mean,
Okay, that's every faction
like
at this point.
that is that is something like it, but at least it's something different. Like for me, it's like, okay, the Kirin Legion. I guess I dislike them because they were like every other faction, but their dailies were annoying. I couldn't just power through them.
Oh no, that's an entirely different episode discussion. We'll
Yeah.
spend the whole discussion on why the Kirin Tor World Quests are the best from Legion.
And Max pipes in Blood Seal, and John wants us to know how many are there, because it's a tie. All of them suck.
Manny, Tetsemi, thank you very much for joining me on this Johnless episode, well, mostly, of Around the Round Table.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now,
And thank you for having me. Honestly, John, next time you invite me, I promise I will actually show.
yeah, he only invites when I'm not actually on the show, so it's going to be a while. But I will say this. It has been a pleasure talking to both of you. I already kind of said that, but that's okay. I'm saying it again because I had a lot of fun, and I hope you did too.
We did.
Now, Tetsemi, if people are looking for you, where can they find you?
Best place to find me is on Twitter. I am at Ivory Tiger. You can also find me on the AI Discord. Just look for Tetsemi. And we record a little podcast called the AIE Podcast every other Sunday. We would normally be recording this Sunday, but we're pushing it back a week. So it'll be the first Sunday in March that we're recording.
All right. Very cool. Manny, how about you? Where can people find you?
So you can always listen to me do my little rant over on 4 As Off with Jocelyn Moffat. Jocelyn Kearney. Wow. It's actually been a year since she's been married. February. So that was a real big mess up. Jocelyn Kearney, right? I do a great show with her called 4 As Off, and that can be found over wherever you find podcasts. And you can find me on Twitter. That's Tetsemi and Manny, true without the E, where I am messing up my co-host name. And then obviously, I just want to end this by saying that you have all been fooled. This is a recording. I was never actually here.
It's amazing that we followed the script so well, too. I'm actually really excited about that.
Darn it.
It worked out really well. So normally John's here. This is where I throw it to him to give his little spiel. But since he is sick, it's all right. We are allowed to take time off when we need. And I hope that he's getting a lot of rest. Because I did see that a show that he does every Wednesday night on the Frog Pants Network called Core.
Core!
Thank you. That's Wednesday night. It looks like, if I remember correctly, they pushed that back. But check that out. That's all about video games and really cool stuff with Bo Schwartz and Scott Johnson as well. And, of course, you can always check them out on There'll Be Dungeons on Sundays. I believe that is at 3 p.m. Pacific on twitch.tv/frogpants for an ongoing, persistent Dungeons & Dragons game where he plays a pretty darn awesome dude. Just gotta say that. And I know that I believe they canceled it last week and as well because he was sick. So look, it's not just this show that he's skipping out on. It's every show. He's really not feeling good, guys. So seriously, give him a tweet. Wish him well. If you're looking for me, though, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Ben. Oh, also you can find him on Twitter at John_Jagger. Sorry, forgot about that part, which is important. But if you're looking for me, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Ben Bumhofer. I do a Dungeons & Dragons show myself with Ro and TBK and a bunch of wonderful people that you can find on +5 to Hit. That's our Dungeons & Dragons game. But I also do a show with TBK called DN Discussions, where we talk about all aspects of Dungeons & Dragons, whether it's from a DM perspective or a player perspective. And we have a lot of fun with that one. That's still growing, and definitely check that out. And last but not least, the newest episode of Boxford is up. That's the show where Aludra and I geek out about anything and everything. We actually talk a whole bunch about our recent vacations. So if you want to hear about my time in Galaxy's Edge, and guess what? That's a good episode to check out. This show, though, Azeroth Roundtable, you can find us on Twitter. We are at AzerothRT. If you have any questions, comments, want to tell us about how min-maxing is good for you as well, you can send those emails to azerothroundtable@gmail.com. And, of course, we are on Twitter at AzerothRT. And if this is the first episode you've ever listened to, and you're like, who's this John guy they're talking about? Well, guess what? You can check out every single other episode that we've ever recorded on AzerothRoundtable.com, as well as on iTunes, Spotify, and pretty much every other place you can find podcasts. And last but not least, on AzerothRoundtable.com, you can check out a link to our Discord. And don't forget, we stream Friday nights on twitch.tv/AzerothRT. Check out our Twitter, AzerothRT, to find out when that is. Now, folks, this is the time of show where John usually says certain things like, thank you very much for listening and supporting us. Some people support more than others. In fact, this show is brought to you by some of those people. In fact, if you want to support like them, throw money at us and we might do better. All you need to do is go to patreon.com/AzerothRT and you can join the Azeroth Roundtable Patreons. Every week, we give shout-outs to people like Sarah M., Kilroy Tastic, Taryn, Aaron, Caleb M., and Michael V., who are members of the Murloc Club. To which I have to say, so check us out on patreon.com/AzerothRT. Gosh, that's a whole lot to talk about and say.
That's why you split it up.
All right. Well, I would just like to say, chat room, you all have been fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us. Again, Manny, Tetsemi, thank you very much for joining me on the episode this week. And this has been episode 360, which is blowing my mind that we've had this many episodes. So until next time, everybody, be good to each other.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Holy crap, guys, that's a podcast episode.
Woo-hoo. I'm so sorry you were sick, kitten.
Yeah.
Oh, Wicked Kitten's sick too? Oh, that's not good.
She was sick.
Was sick last Saturday, apparently.
Yeah.
Oh.
Couldn't eat for 2 days.
Oh, geez. Sorry, I was going through the spiel of every single like promo thing ever.
Now you know why you split it up.
Yeah, holy crap. I can't do John's promo, my promo, the show promo, and the Patreon.
Promo.
That is rough. But
But
yeah.
see, folks, that's why you join them, because you know it's live and not just a canned drop in that John puts in every week.
That's true. Which is why it's really weird. Really, really weird. I'm so tempted to hit this run 60-second ad break, but I'm not going to. Just because I can. But anyways, I got to get this edited. I have some family coming in from out of town tomorrow, so I have to get to bed slightly early-ish tonight. But again, Tet, Manny, thank you so much for joining me. And chat room, you guys have been awesome. I'm going to go ahead and cut the stream. So we will catch you all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. And I'll see you Wednesday.
Yes, you will.
Yes, you will.